It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
You're listening to the Big Guy Sports Radio Show. Your home for New York sports.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Big Guy Sports Radio Network, your home for all your New York sports radio talk. We are live here on July 13th, 2020 for the next 2 hours from 4 to 6 o'clock. I am your host, Jim, as always, along with my co-host, Mac. How are you today, Mac?
I'm doing great, Jim. I mean, working hard. We got a big guest coming in. He may call at any minute, so people be ready. We got a big guest, Greg Prince, coming on tonight. We have a lot of different subjects we're going to cover. We got some big guests coming up this week, and we also got a guest scheduled for next week. So we're going to keep bringing you the biggest names we can find, and hopefully everything works out right. So I'm ready tonight for this show, Jim.
Absolutely. And speaking of our guest tonight, who will be joining us shortly, we do have a guest tonight to talk a little Mets. We have Mets author Greg Prince, who he's covered the Mets for many years, writing books such as The Amazing Again Mets, how the 2015 Mets brought back magic to Queens. He's also runs his own Mets blog, Faith and Fear in Flushing. So he's going to come in. We're going to get a chance to talk to him a little bit and discuss, quite a few things involving the Mets today. And then, of course, later on in the show, we'll talk about some extra stuff with the Mets. We'll talk about the Yankees and Chapman. We're going to talk about some news and notes from the NFL involving, the Redskins and a couple other things.
Yeah.
And, of course, we'll talk about hockey, which has released its official schedule for the playoff rounds. So we got a lot of good stuff to get to today. So we will keep it coming and keep everybody busy.
Yeah, it's going to be great today, Jim. I can't wait to hear what he's got to say, Greg's got to say, and again, cover a lot of these big stories coming out. So I'm looking forward to today's show. I'm looking forward to this week's show, all the shows this week, and of course, our weekend show of baseball and football is one of the most popular, and we have a great show then, too. So.
Right. So, we'll wait. He's going to call in momentarily. And in the meantime, while we wait for him to call in, little non-sports talk today. So Mac went and got a car. So
yeah.
The 3 Cadillac I was thinking about.
I would have loved to got that. I mean, listen, I have 2 vehicles, one for me for working. And of course, my wife drives. She's a writer on the program. She drives around and does her thing. And one of our cars kind of went south, so we had to replace that, and boy, is that an ordeal, especially with the COVID virus and getting it registered and everything. I still got work to do on it. So, but it's part of daily life, right, Jim? I mean, you got to have a vehicle to get around, and hopefully it works out where when I go to work, I don't have to take the old jalopy I have that's kind of falling apart, but the engine is strong as heck. It's like a tank. So.
Unless you live in the city and you could take a subway train everywhere.
Yeah, that would be great if I lived in New York or.
So that's out the window for you.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully everything works out with that, and hopefully tonight and the following nights. When we have our ex-Giant is going to be coming in. We got a heavyweight former contender coming in Wednesday. So we're going to keep bringing you the guests and entertaining you the best we can and give you as much information as we can.
Yeah, and John wants us to touch base later on a Judge. I saw him on Facebook today. John, a passionate Yankee fan. He's mad that Judge has a stiff neck.
Yeah, I read that.
But every time Judge gets hurt, he gets upset.
Oh, my God. I mean, What I mean, I know they're magnifying it because it's the Yankees and because it's Judge, and hopefully everything works out with him, and the Yankees lineup is ready to go.
I'm not too worried about it. Little stiff neck. I wouldn't stress about it too much.
I wouldn't either, but he's an important part of the team. And as I'm doing my thing here, checking to make sure everything's cool with our guests.
Robert says good afternoon. Alexander says good afternoon, basically in his own way. And Kevin says hello. Justin says hello. So we have all the usual suspects and a few more. So we're pretty excited for that. And in a couple minutes here, Greg is going to call in, and we'll get right into our Mets action.
That would be great. In fact, he came on and shared a post of us with having him on, and so hopefully we'll get him on soon, and we'll get to start talking.
Absolutely. We get a little Met call in here, get a little Met love, because we need in here. Because if I let Mac take over with all the all the Yankee love, we'll never get anything done here. So
that's the truth. In fact, I was talking to Jets Media today. I got a hold of the person that actually puts together their yearbook and heads their website. Got a couple numbers to get in contact with the Jets. So hopefully we start talking, maybe get some feeds from the Jets and start talking some Jets.
Did you notice? You probably didn't notice because you're all over the place. But did you notice how I trolled Justin a little bit today?
No, I didn't see that at all.
Well, when I put together our little graphical art thing that showed, what we were going to be talking about today, and I threw some pictures in there. Obviously, I threw a hockey picture in there because we're going to talk a little bit later about hockey. And I put a Flyers picture, but we'll get to that later, as Greg said. Greg, how you doing today? This is Big Guy Sports Radio Network. You're on with Jim and Mac. How are you, sir?
Fine. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to come and join us. We are very excited to see you. I've kind of already laid the foundation about who you are and, about your blog and your books to the people listening. And they might throw some questions at you as well. But now that I have you, I'll get right into it if that's all right. And, see what you got to say about the Mets and some of the past stuff as well.
Okay.
All right. So, my first question is this. Basic one, really. Could you just tell us what it was besides just being a Mets fan? Because there are a lot of us who are Mets fans, but we don't, some of us we don't have the skills to write a book. What was it that got you interested in writing books about the Mets?
Well, I read a lot of books about the Mets for most of my life. I became a Mets fan when I was 6 years old, which happened to be 1969, which was very good timing. I think the first Mets book I read was called The Perfect Game by Tom Seaver with Dick Schaap, which is to say it was written by Dick Schaap and maybe Tom Seaver proofread it. Something. But, I spent, the next 3.5, whatever decades, taking books out of the library, going to bookstores, going to book sales on the street. Loved reading about the Mets. I like writing about the Mets too, although, up until we started the blog, and by we, I mean my friend Jason Fry and I, there was a lot of email and message boards, that sort of thing in the early days of the internet. But I guess I got to thinking somewhere in the 2000s, I've been a fan. I like to write. This is a team that I think a lot of people are interested in without really being catered to, in the New York market at that time. So that was, in essence, the building blocks of my first book, Faith and Fear in Flushing, which came out 11 years ago. And it was a lot of fun to kind of, trace the parallel paths of my life and the Mets life, which is roughly the same age. We were born the same year in 1962. And I think what I discovered from writing it and being fortunate enough that some people read it was that it was the story of a lot of Mets fans, that, we've all kind of lived this life as, I don't want to say addicted to our favorite team, but sort of enmeshed and engaged and kind of marking the moments of our life by, where our team was at a given moment, whether they were in the World Series, whether they were in last place, whether they were trading our favorite player, that sort of thing. So it all kind of came together that way. And I was, very, very happy to have had the opportunity to write that book. The subtitle was An Intense Personal History of the New York Mets. And I think we all have an intense personal history, and I suppose that's why other Mets fans related to it.
Absolutely.
Hey, Greg, this is Mac. You've been talking to my wife who helps me out in booking guests. She's been messaging you back and forth, and we're very excited about having you on. I got a question for you. Tell the people out there, what was the last book you wrote about the Mets? And just tell us a little bit about the book, sir.
The last book I wrote was called Piazza, Catcher, Slugger, Icon, Star, came out in 2017. It was intended to capture the era in which not only Piazza played for the Mets and became as the subtitle indicates, an icon for the franchise, but also, again, the paths that the Mets and the player were respectively on circa 1992, 1993, when Piazza was just coming to the majors and making this name for himself as this greatest hitting catcher ever in Los Angeles. And the Mets, who were, quite frankly, going down the tubes at the same time. I thought it was a great coincidence that about 30 days before Piazza makes his major league debut and ultimately becomes, in our view as Mets fans, the second Met to go into the Hall of Fame as a Met, Tom Seaver went into the Hall of Fame in early August. And it also always struck me as fascinating that, this consecration, if you will, of the pinnacle of messiness of Tom Seaver coincided with the downfall of the franchise. Remember, 1992, it would be immortalized in another book, The Worst Team Money Could Buy. And the next year, when that book came out, it was already kind of out of date because 1993 was even worse. So I wanted to kind of explore the 1990s where the Mets were concerned, keeping an eye on Piazza, and then kind of the big bang that brought them. And shall I say again, I like to speak in the first person plural, us, meaning the Mets fans, and to a lesser extent, or to a different extent, the Mets. I know that some people kind of look down on the idea of a fan saying we, talking about their team. But, to me, even though I can certainly separate who I am from what they are, I think at the end of the day, you care because you are part of we. So, the book went on to explore, what those years were like getting there, the heights of them in the late 90s into 2000, the World Series appearance, the playoff appearance in 99, and the denouement after that climax of, it's so hard to say goodbye, period. And I think it's important to also kind of talk about the perceptions that we have of those players we love once they've left us, and why it became so important to us that Mike Piazza go into the Hall of Fame, and of course go into the Hall of Fame as a Met. And I think that was kind of what really motivated me to write that book, because it struck me that this was something that we all took fairly personally, as if, this was one more game that we had to win. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, what that relationship is between the fans and those who we put up on a pedestal. And I think, this came up after Piazza goes in the Hall of Fame. There's a Met logo on his cap. Thousands of Mets fans head up to Cooperstown to welcome him into the Hall of Fame. And then a week later, he comes back to Flushing, to Citi Field, and has his number retired, which to that point was an incredibly rare honor among Mets.
I could tell you personally, I love
that was
him.
Piazza in the book.
Yeah, I tell you personally, Mac knows this. I speak about Piazza all the time. It meant so much to me that he went in as a Met. I can tell you that because he's my favorite player. But let me ask you a question about some of the current stuff going on. And I have a question for you about the ownership, but then I also have a small follow-up on something that came out today. So, Mac, I have one, then another real quick. But all along, I've been saying that I felt like the best fit for the Mets is Steve Cohen. He's a fan. He's got the deepest pockets, a great love for the team. Even when he went away, I said, watch, I kept telling people he's not away. He's just waiting. He's biding his time. Now they have bids in there, and it looks like the Wilpons are finally done playing around and they're actually going to sell the team. Would you agree that it's really his team to lose?
I suppose if his bid is as gargantuan as it has been made out to be, and is greater than other bids, and seems to be, again, without knowing anything about what it's like to be a billionaire, trust me, the feeling that it is Steve Cohen. It's not a consortium of people who sort of kind of are interested in owning a baseball team or think it would be a nice entree or great sport or whatever it is. This is, as you said, Steve Cohen, Mets fan, Mets minority owner, to this point. I know he's had his regulatory issues in the past. I don't know anything about being a billionaire. Like I said, I imagine that just sort of comes with the territory, so I'm not going to be too judgmental about that. It strikes me that we've reached this point with an ownership that has been for almost 20 years, the Wilpon family with Saul Katz, who I guess is part of that family, for 40 years has been at least partly Wilpon, depending on the percentages, starting in 1980 and how much Doubleday owned. And there is absolutely no sense of it'll be a shame to see them go. They were such a part of this organization. We won X number of times, or at least got into the World Series, that sort of thing with the Wilpons. I think we're, with all due respect to whatever humanity Jeff Wilpon, Fred Wilpon, Saul Katz bring to the table, we're all ready to see them go. We're all ready for a solution like Steve Cohen. And all we can do, I suppose, is hope that the figures fall into place, that everybody feels that their needs are taken care of, and that we're no longer looking at a New York National League team that sort of has to scour the bargain basement for players and that sort of thing. So I think you're right. I think he is, the candidate. And, when there's that much money on the table, who the hell knows what's going to happen? But if there's anybody to pull for without actually, knowing the people involved other than their credentials, that this is the guy.
Well, let me ask you, I got to ask a quick follow-up because of breaking news I saw today, but I also will say I agree with what you said, because I was looking today, and now they're saying that the A-Rod group has Travis Kelce putting money in, DeMarco Murray, Brian Urlacher, and I'm like, why in the world would the league want 9 people buying into the Mets instead of 1? But that's just the side note, because that's just the crazy stuff. But there were rumors floating around today, and I don't know whether there's truth to this or not, but I want to get your thought about Cohen. There have been rumors started going around today that the league would prefer they didn't sell to Cohen because they're worried that because he has so much money that he'll want to come in and buy so much talent to put the Mets on the market right away that he'll raise the bar for contract costs for the owners, and they see that as a problem. Could the league possibly do something like that? I mean, isn't that kind of controlling the sport now by not letting someone come in just because you're afraid they'll raise the market on prices? I mean,
I guess from the skewed vantage point of MLB, that is a legitimate concern. I'm not saying it's one that I support them having a concern about, but I can see where they would look at it that way. But I think they're also looking at it in a self-defeating way, that if you have a franchise in New York that is willing to go to the mat, so to speak, to go the extra mile, to go after, and I'm just throwing a name out there, Mookie Betts, somebody like that, let's just say, if he's on the market next winter. Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want a team trying to be a super team? Are the Mets automatically going to become the team that precludes everybody else from ever winning another National League East title, ever winning another pennant, ever winning another World Series? Of course not. We know it doesn't work that way. Just, in passing a few minutes ago, I invoked the worst team money could buy. We all know that just throwing money at players doesn't necessarily get you anywhere, but you'd rather have the resources. Certainly as a fan, I would rather not worry about them not having the ability to go after, and again, just throwing the name out there, Mookie Betts, if in fact he was available. So I think that a league that is scared of a team becoming a higher profile team and competing with other high profile teams is basically asking to not get a lot of attention. It certainly hasn't hurt to have the Dodgers, who, less than 10 years ago were a mess and got new ownership and now, compete in a high revenue, high salary way of looking at things, and they win every year, or at least they go to the playoffs every year. I don't think that's really hurt anybody, and makes everybody in the National League West want to compete harder. So, no, I think we're going to be fine if that's what we have. And if that's where baseball's head is at, I think it's one more, indication that Rob Manfred and the people he works for are not looking at a big picture.
Yeah, Greg. I mean, I agree with everything you said. I mean, I'm a huge Yankee fan, but I've been following the Mets since 1969 too. My grandfather was a huge Mets fan. I watched that unbelievable young pitching staff, so I've been following them too. And I'm kind of a historian with like you are, born in the same year. So with that in mind, I like your opinion on what do we think of this 60-day season? I mean, it's not 162; it's a sprint. Do you feel that if that the winner of this World Series, if it's finally played, if baseball season does go, do you think there's an asterisk on that just because a younger team or a team that's not that good could put together a quick running start and go 20-3 or 15-6 and seal up something when the better teams may have a problem getting out of the gate? So is there an asterisk in this season, Greg, or do you think that it's the same for everybody?
Yeah, I do think it's the same for everybody. I mean, you probably remember 1981 and the split season where it was, again, it's not the same situation by any means, but you had a second half of the year that was its own independent season, playing the teams that finished before there was a strike in the middle of the season in first place.
Right.
And a couple of teams wound up getting, quite frankly, kind of screwed brought by traditional measures, teams that had the best record overall, but they failed to have it in the first half of the second half. But what I remember about that was, well, you knew the rules going into the second half. You knew that the rules were in the second half if you didn't win the first half. So here in 2020, every team is being told you have 60 games, go make the best of it. So while I do believe as long as we have kind of a collective memory of 2020, knock wood that we're all around in 2021 and the years after, that there will be sort of an implied asterisk to it that we'll always kind of remember, even as, the years go by. Hey, 2020, that year, let's just say the Padres won their first World Series. That's right. That was the year of COVID. And that was the year where they played 60 games, and maybe the Padres got lucky. But so maybe you don't want to take the 2020 World Champions and put them up against the 2019 World Champions, or the 1975 Big Red Machine, or whoever. If you're sitting down and thinking about where a world champion ranks historically, but if you're just looking at 2020 baseball, trying to make the best of it with 60 games because you couldn't have 162, and apparently they couldn't get their act together to have something close to 100. So, we'll know. Years and years from now, it'll probably be forgotten, the same way that they have to kind of bring up things from 1918 to talk about that epidemic and say, maybe you don't know this because nobody's alive from then. And, people sometimes forget things. People sometimes, there are people who don't remember 1981 or aren't aware that was a weird year. So, but for now, which is all we can deal with, you know what? If they can get this together, if they can get to next week, have an opening night, an opening day, and somehow get through 2 months and then a month of playoffs, well, at the end of the day, whoever wins that will have won it, and we'll call them champions and hope for spring training next February.
Definitely. And to follow up on that, I mean, you just mentioned, the stoppage in 81, with the way they're not going to get a lot of revenue from the ballparks, and Major League Baseball is more of a local, local ratings thing where, it's not like the National Football League where it's spread out over the whole nation and teams take care of each other. Can you see next year, because of the, that agreement that's coming up, can you see maybe a possible strike or even a lockout by the owners next year because of all the revenue lost and the new contracts that they're going to want and how divisive they've been this year?
I suppose anything is possible. Certainly before the pandemic, this was kind of looming in the distance. And it feels like we've been heading down that road. I mean, for so long, since 1995, when that strike of the year before was settled, baseball has really boasted, we've had uninterrupted labor peace. Isn't this great? We're the one sport that hasn't had a problem. But, that has seemed in danger now for a couple of years. And, I suppose is certainly the way that we got into this one, got to the 60-game season, certainly is not an indicator of a lot of goodwill between the two sides. And I think the thing that kind of haunts me about this 60-game season and how quickly they invented the concept of, quote, summer camp, sponsored by Camping World. And, you always get the feeling that the way the owners talked about not wanting to have a very long season is that somebody will think, why do we even have 162 games? Why do we start in late March or early April? So, it's hard to know what is going to happen, especially because we're not talking about, stuff on the field that we feel at least a little qualified to predict. But, I would like to believe that whatever happens in the 60-game season and the postseason schedule to follow it, it's something that people get excited about, that the television ratings on a national level, once there are playoffs, will respond to the fact that, hey, look at that. There's a championship of some sort going on television. We still can't go to stadiums. We still can't go out all that much, depending on where you live. We sure are glad that baseball is here, and we're feeling pretty good about baseball, and maybe this brings, the sides together, and hell, maybe it ushers in if not a new golden age, but, it ratchets up interest in the game, and young people get interested again more than they have, and people realize, realize what they missed. Not just the hardcore types like us, but, again, we are in a bizarre situation to begin with as a nation in this world right now. And I suppose you might ask, why should baseball be any different? So I guess we'll see.
Right. Well, let me ask you about the rotation, because obviously losing Thor is a big blow for the team. We have 5 starters. They've been reluctant to put Lugo in the rotation on a full-time basis. And honestly, from my standpoint, I don't see a lot of depth. I mean, you have the young kids, David Peterson, but he didn't have a spectacular 2019 in the minors. You have Thomas Sapucki, who I guess he's all right. So my question for you is that could you see any of the young guys, if somebody gets hurt or they get the virus and have to sit out for 2 weeks because we don't have a ton of depth, do you see them giving Peterson a shot, or do you think they're just going to go with one of the stopgap veterans they added to the 60-man or the 40-man? Because I don't see a lot of depth for the Mets when it comes to starting pitching now that, the guy we picked up for depth, Wacha, has to start.
Yeah, there's something about this whole season that has an all bets are off feeling to it. So if we're looking at a situation like you described, that where one of the 5 nominal starters, who I think are all, pretty good to very good to Jacob deGrom, who's in a class of his own, one of them goes down, do you just bring out Corey Oswalt again and or Walker Lockett and try not to be very depressed about it? I kind of like the idea of Peterson, if only because, everybody is sort of feeling their way around. So why not give somebody like that a shot? But I think, again, when that day comes, that will seem very pressing. They did their due diligence in what we thought was the off season when they got Wacha. He was the depth, and, Syndergaard's elbow kind of, changed the equation. All we can do is hope, that nobody gets sick, nobody gets hurt, and you don't wind up using either completely unproven previous minor leaguers or quadruple A starters. Seth Lugo, I think, is so valuable in the bullpen. I can't blame them for wanting to leave him out there because one of those things I think we all get excited about the idea that starting pitching is paramount, and it's certainly, whatever percentage you want to ascribe to a given game, what pitching is. But this is a sport where complete games are rarities, and starting pitchers are generally told, "Hey, give us 6 innings," and in this year specifically, I don't see them pushing anybody. So you want to have a lot of bullpen depth. Unfortunately, at least on paper, they've got the bullpen depth, and I think Seth Lugo is the heart of that. So I would keep him where he is.
Excellent. Yeah, that's what I would like to see, the same thing as well that you touch base on. I'd really like to see them, if they're going to have, at some point, they're going to have to use somebody. I'd rather see a David Peterson out there or someone and just see what the kid's got than throw Corey Oswald out there again myself, or a Rosamo Ramirez or somebody like that who, you already know what they can do. My other question is, outside of the starting rotation, which I guess is not really a concern unless somebody, gets hurt. What is your biggest concern? Is it still the bullpen?
Oh, well, it's a Mets bullpen. So despite the credentials that they have, you never feel comfortable. Edwin Diaz was so good for Seattle, and he was so, how we say, erratic for the Mets, to put it kindly. And Familia, had a real renaissance in Oakland for half a season, or less than half a season, and we saw what kind of year last year was. We don't know what kind of shape Betances is in. So, that's a concern unto itself. I'm always interested in the defense where the Mets are concerned, because they put so little emphasis on it. And, right now, Robinson Cano hasn't played or hasn't reported, or he's reported and they haven't brought him in. And then, so you wonder, well, that changes the infield. And if you're moving McNeil to second base, well, who plays third base? Do you put J.D. Davis there? J.D. Davis isn't a great third baseman, but he's not a great outfielder either. And, you have this this abomination known as a designated hitter. No offense to the American League fan among us here, but I think you can only play that card once per game with somebody who has trouble fielding, and right now that would probably be Cespedes. Of course, the fact that Cespedes even looms as a possibility in the lineup is a bonus, I suppose. So, this is never a team, at least it hasn't in generations, made defense a priority. So, the bullpen and the defense are sort of in the same, in my mind, sort of in the same package, in that they can cost you a game that you think you have in hand. So I'll be curious to see how all of that plays out.
Yeah, Greg, that's great points. We both agree with you as far as that goes. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot here for one quick second. Like I said, I'm a Yankee fan, but I've followed the Mets for years. Do you believe that the Mets have a legitimate shot at the World Series this year?
I think so, but only because it's 60 games. And again, if it was 162, I think sure, but then you really have to think it through. And not to be too cute about this, I think almost everybody has a legitimate shot, certainly to get there, to get to the playoffs. And once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen in a series of short series, or, a one-game series where the wild card is concerned. Listen, you have DeGrom, and that's, every 5 days. That's fantastic news. I feel pretty good about Stroman. I feel pretty good about Matz. And so that you're talking about 3 out of 5 days. And I feel good about the lineup. And I don't feel, I don't know what Luis Rojas is going to be like, but I figure he's got to be better than Mickey Callaway. So without knowing everything else that's going to happen, not only with this roster, but also with the teams that they'll be playing, and they'll only be playing, 9 different teams. I think it's just, I've never had a sense of a season being so up for grabs, because it's 60 games. But this is not while this isn't a team who I think you can punch their ticket and say, well, they're definitely going to be in the postseason. It's also not one of those teams where you say, well, they're just going to be a punching bag for somebody else. So I think they've got as decent a chance as anybody in their division. I mean, you got 4 teams in the division other than the Marlins who seem viable. And there, all you can do is watch and try to figure it out. But I feel okay about their prospects. I have to be honest with you. I haven't really even what are we, like 10 days away, something like that?
Yeah.
I haven't like been laser focused on the 2020 Mets as an actual competitive entity because it has just seemed so far away and surreal up until the point they reported and started working out and started having intra-squad games, and the fact that there is going to be an exhibition series between the two New York teams this weekend. It's only beginning to dawn on me, and that this is supposed to look like real baseball pretty soon. We've been without it since the middle of March, and
Listen, Greg. Something.
I've still kept an eye on the original schedule just out of habit. Like, we'd be in Miami right now. We'd be coming into the All-Star break now, that sort of thing. But it all feels so distant and far away, and now it's going to be something real. And we still don't really know if it's going to happen. So
very true.
It's all the whole thing just has that up for grabs feel. But if they get there, then I'm willing to take my chances with that. If I'm one of 30 teams with a chance, then I'm a baseball fan, and I've got baseball to watch, and that's okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, I got more faith that the Mets are going to do a lot more than a lot of the Met fans do, because I do like their starting roster. I do like their pitching. If their bullpen holds up, I think you guys got a great shot. So let me ask you, are you currently writing a book on the Mets now? And if so, can you give us a hint of what it would be about?
I'm always kind of writing a book about them.
Right.
Getting it together. I've had like 3 or 4 ideas I've been batting around, not really having committed to any of them. I would like to finish a series I began several years ago called The Happiest Recap, which is in essence the greatest wins in team history. It was designed to be several volumes. I got volume 1 out there some years ago, dealing with 62 to 73, which I think is just like sort of the wonder years of the Mets. Not only are they born, but they go through their growing pains. And, you got 69, you got 73. So, the next volume is 74 to 86, kind of those middling years to the basement years to the Renaissance years, and ultimately the World Championship. And then, the rest of the centuries in the third volume. And that's just something I haven't completely put together from a publishing standpoint. I would like to get that done. Some other ideas I've been kind of kicking around. Mostly I wind up putting my energy into the blog, Faith and Fear and Flushing, that I do with my friend Jason Fry. And, and plus whatever else I have going on in life. But I certainly hope to publish some more books before long, and I appreciate you asking.
I have one last question before we let you go, because I got to ask everybody, and I don't get the Mets on all the time because, Mac, he's a Yankee guy, so he tries to sneak them Yankee guys, and you got to be careful. Got to ask, give us a regular season record. Where do you think the Mets go?
Oh gosh, I haven't even thought about it, but I'll
Just
make one up on the spot. 60 games. What will get us into the playoffs? I'm going to say 38-22, and I just made that up.
That's what Max said.
Like
I was more of like 35-25 or 32
you know what? I was going to
28.
say 35-25, but I was thinking that probably won't do it, and I want to be optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
For me to sit here and give you a number, I would have to sit here and get out my calculator and do every other team's records that they're going to play, because normally you do the whole league and your interleague rivals and whatever. So if I could spew any amount of numbers. I'm going to be optimistic and say a winning record, which I don't take for granted. I mean, gosh, last year they were like 11 games under 500 around this time of year, and they turned it around and finished 10 over. In my heart of hearts, this is such a weird year. I will take anything that's good, and say, listen, if they were to somehow go all the way, I will say it was a legitimate season. It was as great as anything they could have done in 69 or 86, or if they'd gone a little further in 2015, that sort of thing. But if they don't, I'm just going to say, well, it was too weird a year. What do you want?
Right.
Expect from this sort of thing. So, you know what? If at 4:10 p.m. on July 24th, if I have the date correct, Friday, July 24th, Jacob deGrom throws the first pitch of the season to whoever's leading off for the Atlanta Braves at Citi Field in front of nobody, but still with a television audience that will include me. I'll consider that a victory. And they can, get through 60 games, and all of their opponents get through 60 games, and the players who are, slated to play, knock on wood, like everybody else in this country, may they be healthy, and may they see, only good times. I think that'll be something of a victory. And then again, listen, if they lose 4 in a row and they're 5 games out, I probably won't be so cheerful. But for now, just the idea of baseball sounds good.
That's excellent. Again, we thank you so much for coming on. And to everybody listening, again, you heard about his book on Piazza. You can pick that up. There's another book I mentioned earlier before he got on that you could pick up about Amazing Again, how the 2015 Mets brought magic back to Queens. You can also catch him on his Mets blog, Faith and Fear in Flushing. Greg, thank you so much for coming on and giving us time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
I truly appreciate the invite. Thanks so much.
All right. You have a good day, Greg. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
You be well. Bye-bye.
All right. So you got Greg came in, gave me some Mets love, which is what I need on this show because, as you guys know who are listening at home, I'm surrounded by 2 Yankee nut jobs all the time, and Mac and Matt. So I had to get some Met love. All good stuff. I got to be honest here, and I'm not just saying this because you hear my opinion on the Mets all the time because you're here. I feel like him and I are kindred spirits because everything he said is how I feel, like about the pitchers and the bullpen and the hitters and, and Cohen. And, I brought that up because I know we didn't have a chance, you and I, because it was breaking news late in the afternoon to get a chance to talk to it. But that was a rumor going around today is
I saw that
chance that maybe the owners didn't want, Cohen to get the team because they think he'll just go nuts and buy everybody. And you know how it is in baseball. If he goes out and signs, let's just say we'll use Betts as an example because he's the biggest hitter that could potentially hit the market. If he goes out and signs Betts to $400 million, well, that's the new standard for the best player. Or if he signs JT Realmuto to $30 million a year, well, the catcher's new standard is $30 million a year. But to me, when I said this on Facebook, and I'll say this on the air, if somebody other than Cohen got the team for reasons of they bid more money, because I don't know if you saw it today, but A-Rod's added like 9 athletes to his group to try to raise more money, which to me personally, I have to think the last thing Major League Baseball would really want is a group that with 11 owners. I mean, that's ludicrous. You got to run background on 11 owners now. Just because they played sports don't mean you're not running a background on them. That's right. Ryan Urlacher could be selling meth in his basement. You don't know. But my point is this. If somebody came in and outbid Cohen, then it is what it is. It goes to the highest bidder. If somebody else got it, I told you a million times, anyone's better than Wilpon. But I'm going to tell you what I said on Facebook today, and I'm sticking to it. And I don't even care if I do a sports show. I'll sit it out. I'll sit out Saturdays. If Major League Baseball, if Cohen is the highest bidder and Major League Baseball blocks him, because the owners don't want him to spend, which basically shows they're controlling the sport. They're controlling who can win. They're controlling, they're only letting the Dodgers and Yankees spend money. If that happens, I am done with baseball. I will never spend a minute on this show or anywhere else talking about baseball. I'll let you two run the Saturday show alone. I'm done. The minute you do that to me as a fan to where I can't get the best out of the Mets because you don't want to pay. I mean, they didn't try to throw Steinbrenner out when he was throwing money at everybody.
There was problems, Jim.
Right.
I know maybe you don't remember. When Steinbrenner went, and I compare this to Steinbrenner a lot, when Steinbrenner went to buy the Yankees, there was a big uproar about not letting him in because they knew he was wealthy. They knew what he said. He's going to come in and he's going to take the Yankees back to the World Series again. And he was to spend any money he had to make that happen. And when he signed Catfish Hunter, the first big free agent, that contract was ludicrous compared to what other teams were spending. So there's a very strong similarity to both of these guys. And you know something, I agree with you. If J-Lo and A-Rod can't get it together with a bank and do this as a partner, and they have to start recruiting people from wherever to do this. They don't belong owning the Mets, and I'm sorry they don't, because that
12 owners. I mean, come on.
That means
Flea market?
Never mind the background checks. If that's what you have to do to come up with the money, then you can't run a team and you don't have the financing.
Okay, you're not going to be able to spend on anybody.
Exactly. And
I'm telling you, I'm done with baseball if they block Cohen off over. If Cohen is willing to pay the most and you block him, which is basically MLB saying, we don't want the Mets to win. No offense, that's what it is. I understand it's not the Mets per se. It could be anybody. He could be buying the Giants. He could be buying the Braves. But that is a terrible message to send.
Oh, no doubt. And you know something, Jim, there would be a lawsuit you wouldn't believe if that happened. I mean, there are antitrust laws right now in place for Major League Baseball. If they're going to start playing games because they don't like that this guy's got money and he's going to spend it in the way he's doing it, if that's the only reason, when that's the legal way to do baseball, Cohen would come back and sue them.
But you know what happens, though? If he sues, he's still never going to get the team. He might sue and win in court for money, but it's not going to get him the team. Like David says, the Devils owner would be good. Well, the Devils owner would be good from the standpoint of he's not the Wilpons, but they don't spend money either. The Devils haven't won since they took over. I don't want a guy to come in here. Listen, I've said all along, I have anyone's better than the Wilpons. I don't care if A-Rod comes in here and buys the team. But here, I don't want an owner to come in and buy the team and then come out and tell us, well, listen, we just spent all our capital on the team. It's going to be years before we could spend. There's a chance Mookie Betts is going to be on the block this year. There's a chance JT Realmuto is going to be on the block this year. Stroman's going to need to be re-signed because you don't have Thor for half the next year, and Porcello and Walker are one-year guys. The Mets need someone that can come in here and spend money. And I don't care if the owners don't want to raise the price on contracts. That's their fault. That's not our fault. The Dodgers have a $200 and something million payroll, so why can't we? I mean, fair is fair. Fair is fair. We've suffered with the Wilpons. I mean,
listen, there is no chip.
No one's party when they're gone.
There is nothing in the contract that has salary caps. The owners let that go back in 1995. They decided not to have a salary cap for the players and that they would control the salaries of players in between amongst themselves. Well, they haven't done that. I mean, you see all the teams that are going by the wayside because they cannot financially get a couple of stars and build a team around them anywhere. They can't. So for them to deny Mets anything like that would not only be probably illegal, and it would just be immoral. So
Steve Cohen has $13.85 million, Mac, and his insiders have come out and publicly said, these are people in his inner circle, that he will outbid any high bid because he wants the team. So that tells me, plain and simple, the only way Steve Cohen doesn't end up with the Mets is if there's shenanigans involved. Nothing else, because his insiders have already said if the A-Rod J-Ro group comes out with $2.3 million, he's going to bid $2.5. So if he doesn't get the team, he doesn't care if he doesn't get SNY. So everyone slow down on social media. He said he offered them a separate $2 million for SNY.
Yeah, $2 billion.
He also said if they want to keep SNY, he has said this himself. He's okay with that. He just wants the team. The network doesn't mean much to him. He's rich. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need that income. If Steve Cohen does not get the Mets and you find out that someone got the Mets at a $2 billion, 1.8, 1.9, 2.1, there was shenanigans behind the scene with the league. And if there's shenanigans, I'm done. Yeah. I put too much heart and soul into baseball and watching every game and taking time away from family to watch game and paying money that probably I couldn't afford to pay. I don't like to spend $400, $500 to go to a baseball game for one day between tickets and hot dogs and $200 parking or whatever they charge. I'm done. I won't do it anymore. I won't support a sport that stops your favorite team from getting better because they don't want you to spend $35 million on bets. They only want you to spend $30. Well,
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you, Jim.
You want to follow Robert? I won't watch crap, fans or no fans.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you if that's what happens.
So, but in other news, before I have a stroke on the air thinking about it, basically, let's go through some news and notes, Mets and Yankees. The first thing is nothing big here. Just Yoenis Cespedes says he's ready. When Greg was on, he talked about it. he said, well, who are you going to play at third base? Well, first of all, Jed Lowry's hitting. So I'm assuming he's not far away. He could play third or second. So you could keep Jeff McNeil at third, because we'll get to Cano in a minute, because Jeff McNeil's supposed to play third. But if you had to have a bad fielder on the field, J.D. Davis is not the greatest fielder, but he can hit. A lot like Andar, he rakes.
Right.
I think you put him at third before you put him in left. Because if you miss a ball at third, it's a single. If you boot a ball, it's a single. You miss a ball in the outfield, it's a double, triple, inside the park, home run. I mean, you put him at third, but Cespedes should be the DH. And I just have this feeling that since he's in his walk year of the last contract he's ever going to get coming up, I just have a feeling Cespedes is going to have a monster year if he's healthy. Let's not forget, Cespedes has not played in the game, Mac, in almost 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he's had problems with both his heels. He's broke his right ankle. The only thing about Cespedes that we really don't know yet is, can he run? Can he sprint? I mean, even when he hit a 2-run home run off Lugo, he just went back to the dugout. He didn't even run it out. So that's going to be the biggest question: is the ankle, the heels, have they all healed right? And of course, I mean, if you're going to DH him every game, I mean, he's a great hitter. Let's put it this way: he was a great hitter, and hopefully he continues on being that. But if he's gonna hit a double and he can only sprint out a single, is that going to affect the run? That's the only big question I have about him right now.
All right. Well, he says he's healthy, so I expect to see him on the 24th, playing. And, every day I get more excited. I mean, now we're down to what, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days before the Yankees open the season.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I don't want to hear. I don't know why people keep saying if we play. They better play. Put your butts on the field and play enough already.
Yeah.
If 15,000 people can get the coronavirus every day in Florida, your butts can play baseball.
No doubt. And and most of them are still going to work too. So
yeah. So I mean, not to mention the fact that they just said yesterday that less people. I think they finally went through a 24-hour period in New York where nobody died from it.
Yeah, that is the great news. Even with all these new cases, is that the mortality rate across the country is way down. Not as many people are.
A lot of people get shot every day in New York now, but that's another story for a show that. We're a sport. So here's my other question. I feel like I'm in the middle. Before we get to Chapman, I feel like we're in the middle of an episode of. Do you remember growing up? Did you ever buy those boxes of cereal where you would look on the back and there was a Where's Waldo cartoon on it? And you were trying to look in the picture and find out where the hell Waldo is?
Right. Where's
Cano? Is he about to show up on the back of a Raisin Bran box in a mural where I can't find him? Because does he have – I mean, I know they're not supposed to announce does he have coronavirus, but with all due respect, Robinson Cano, barring being bitten by a giraffe, you should be on the field because we're paying you like Mookie Betts money and getting Thomas Nido returns. So Where is Robinson Cano? Tell me you found him today.
He's in the backyard. He's raking up the leaves right now. He's getting ready for
right now.
he's getting ready for spring training. Listen. I wish I had an inside source at the Mets media. That's one of the places I don't have. And I could maybe report something to you that I could just say an inside source like everybody does. But I don't have that currently. Listen, it has to be something the team knows about already. I mean, they're not – they would say something. Wouldn't they? I mean, they would say where the heck's Robinson Cano. They would say something. There's something going on, whether it's the virus, whether maybe it's a family thing.
You can't steal a pair of sneakers without it winding up on social media. How are you going to tell me that with social media and TMZ and all, no one can find Robinson? He can't be in America. He's got to be in a different country.
You're probably right. That's the only thing I could think of, that he's down in South America or Puerto Rico.
Hey, I saw him running in the outfield and then he left.
I'm not sure. I don't even remember seeing. Was that him? It could have been a body double, Jim, because I don't even remember if it was him or not.
Korea, a body double.
Yeah.
There's no way he could be in America. He would have been spotted by something by now.
You would think, right? You would think. So he can't be around. He can't be around anywhere around the United States right now. I wouldn't think anyway.
I never thought the day would come where my concern would be, where's Robinson Cano? You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. I mean, for that money he's making, for the output he's put out, he should be very happy. I would be.
He's not getting paid. He only gets paid by the games he plays. So if he wants to go hang out, maybe Robinson Cano is stuck on one of those cruise ships they haven't let dock yet.
That could be too. I mean, maybe he bought the cruise ship and maybe he's the captain right now. He made enough money over the last couple of years.
It could be. And he's going to make more because it's guaranteed. Baseball, baby. It's guaranteed money.
Exactly.
Listen, to be honest with you, if Robinson Cano, no disrespect, listen, Robinson, because I have big hopes for you, especially so I could shove it in Matty Ice's face later, because we've had this discussion. If he's missing, but Jed Lowry is healthy, I'll take my chances with McNeil at third and Lowry at second, and Cano can just take the year off. We'll see.
Yeah.
We still have
it's a
year anyway.
It's a shame when he left the Yankees and went to Seattle. It destroyed him, man. He was a really great player for the Yankees when he was there.
There's a lot of people,
I don't know.
There's a lot of people who put the Yankee uniform on and they're great, and then they go somewhere else and they stink. We've had this conversation before. Okay,
are you saying it's magic? What are you saying here?
I'm saying that there's some magic in that uniform.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. But you let him go when he still had a few. Yeah, he went into Seattle and had a few good years.
Yeah, but nothing like the Yankees.
Understood that, listen, to keep him, we're going to need to pay him an 8-year deal, and the last 4 years of that deal is going to suck. And now,
right.
So anyway, let's talk about Chapman. So this is like the first effect where you're really going to see the effects into the season. Chapman has tested positive for the coronavirus, and now he's not going to be ready for opening day. They've already announced it. It's a mandatory minimum of 2 weeks. He's going to miss at least the first few games, and that's if he tests negative back-to-back times when the time is up. They've already announced Zach Britton will step in the closer's role for the first couple games. So, Chapman, this is what you're going to deal with most of the season, is that when someone gets it, it's a minimum 2 weeks. And then if they don't turn back-to-back negative tests, they got to wait another week. So it's not like if you come back and then, he tests positive, the second test, he could test again in 2 days. That's not how it works. And he's got to sit another week. So this is going to play a big factor in, and like Greg touched base on it. That's why it's kind of wide open this year, because of the fact that at any time you could lose a star player. And if it takes him a month to get back-to-back negatives, he's gone for half the season. A month is half the season.
Sure.
So, now you're seeing the effects. I mean, Chapman, the Yankees' strength, just took a hit.
Yeah, but I mean, our bullpen is really deep, Jim. I mean, I would be worried if I was, if I had a bullpen like one of the weaker teams in the league and my star closer went down. And I mean, with Britton and Green and all the other guys in our bullpen, I'm not totally concerned. But remember when Boone was talking and on the show, and Matty Ice got a little upset saying you got to be patient and that we're going to have to, depend on our bench a lot more this year. And this is one of the reasons. I mean, anybody can get the virus. We'll have to get quarantined. People are going to get hurt because they're not fully stretched out. So you're going to have to be deep in different areas. And with the pitchers, not the starting pitchers, maybe not being able to go the full, 8-9 innings, you're going to have a good bullpen. And we're pretty blessed with the bullpen we got.
Yeah. I mean, the good news for the Yankees is it'd be a lot worse if Garrett Cole had it.
Right.
But this is just more of a bigger picture type thing of the little things that you are going to have to deal with back and forth. You know what I mean? Those are the little things. I mean, you have depth, but what happens if he in 2 weeks he doesn't test negative, and now he's out another 2 weeks, and then somehow Ottavino gets it. Depth can fall apart fast.
Definitely, I agree with that. But I mean, I'd rather have that happen than Cole. I'd rather have that happen than one of our star position players. I mean, LeMahieu right now is dealing with that, and hopefully he tests negative. Somebody like him went down, or maybe two of your position players. I mean, that would really concern me, especially if it was a weaker team, if we were talking about, the Angels or Kansas City, or even somebody like the White Sox, if two of their batters went down and their staff is men's and men's right now, then I would really be concerned. But when you have teams, and I'll even include the Mets in this, when you have teams that have a good, a solid position players and they have decent backups behind them, you're in a lot better positions than a lot of teams.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, this is something that people are not going to want to hear. They're not going to want to talk about, but you got to get used to it. This is going to be something us and every other show out there is going to talk about a lot this season because this is going to pop up. This is going to pop up. You know what I mean? And you think it shouldn't because if you look at it from not only just a baseball perspective, but every perspective, I think baseball's, more at risk than everybody else. Because if you look at teams if you look at basketball, for example, they're putting you in a bubble. So if everybody follows that bubble, I know Westbrook came positive today, but these are people coming in from being out.
Right.
If you get everyone in the bubble, if they're all negative and you don't let anyone else inside and they don't leave the bubble, how could you possibly become positive? With baseball, it's a little different because they are going to get into buses. They are going to get into planes that you have to hope were wiped down perfectly. And they are going to, that this is what's going to happen. I mean, so, it's not that we want to sit here and talk about it, but at the same time, this is going to be a story all year long.
Oh, definitely. And I read something, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, where the governor said that these baseball teams coming in from other places didn't have to be quarantined. I think I read something in the news about that where Cuomo said that the players that are coming from out of state or from other parts of the country, when they come in, they don't have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. I just think I saw that.
Test them right away.
Right,
so,
but still, that's still different.
In the world, they're not getting tested.
But that's still different than most people. If you come into a state right now, if you go on vacation and go into a state, if you take a plane or whatever, you have to self-quarantine yourself. So he made it a little bit easier for them where they don't have to wait 2 weeks and suppose they test positive again and then wait another 2 weeks before they even get to the facility. So that's something that Cuomo
and I don't know if you noticed today, but there's a lot of talk because I don't know if you saw, but Toronto kind of said that, hey, we're going to be really strict on the players. They could get up to jail time, $750,000. So now Toronto is talking to Buffalo about using their stadium to play the games. Toronto trying to move to America so that their players can get a hamburger without going to jail.
Right. I mean, and the only thing about the bubble too, even with the NBA, Jim, as I've talked about before, if you get everybody there and they're negative and nobody has a virus, it should be fine. But if some way that virus gets in there and they're all together and there's no ventilation and they're all playing, they're all living together and something like that, whether it's by a caterer, whether it's by some equipment they're bringing in, however they get it, if they sneak up and hook up with their girlfriends or whatever, if something happens like that, being closed in with no ventilation all together, that thing's going to spread like crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just going to be something to talk about for the entire year. Hopefully, for the most part, the Mets and the Yankees will stay away from the bug so they can kind of compete at full strength and have a good season. And of course, that on top of all the regular injuries you would get. I mean,
definitely.
On top of everything that you could just sprain an ankle, pull a hamstring, one month injury and your season's just about done.
Definitely. The COVID just adds to that problem that they're going to have.
Yeah. So, well, in other news, let's move off of baseball for a little while and work on some football news and notes, which I'm sure you've been keeping up with. The big story today in football is the Redskins. So I tell you, I don't know sometimes. Daniel Snyder, man, he's just a mess. So they finally announced that they're getting rid of the Redskins, which, first of all, I want to make sure that everybody understands. Because I think people in the sports bubble don't really understand how involved it is to get rid of a name. He's got to now clear out all the merchandise. He's got to go to every part of the stadium where the word Redskins was and remove them. He has to have new jerseys made. He has to have new helmets made. This is not just we'll just pick a new name and everything else will stay the same. He's got to spend a lot of money to change a name. So I can understand why he didn't want to do it from a wallet perspective, because it costs quite a lot of money to change the names. So now they announced it. They announced the name yet, but hopefully they have one in mind, because some lawyer or real estate agent in Virginia went and bought up like 10 of the names they were interested in the domains for them to try to that I would charge that guy with extortion. Law, but I mean, extortion as you can get without kidnapping Daniel Snyder's daughter. Right. So now they're going to come up with a name. I assume we'll hear it fast, within the next week or so. I mean, the season's right around the corner. You got to order. Right. You got to order helmets. You got to have crews come in and take the word Redskins off the front of the stadium. Take the word Redskins off they have this little thing that you go under when you get there. If you ever been to Washington for a game?
No.
All right. Why? They have a little, like a, what do you call those things people get married under sometimes?
An arch.
They have like an arch with the word Redskins on. They got to get rid of that. I mean, they got to take all this stuff down now. They got to take the word Redskins off the carpets if it's in the hallway. I mean, this is like a total remodeling job. Yeah. God, the word Redskins was not printed on the seats in the stadium. They'd have to demolish the damn thing. I mean,
well, I got two suggestions, real quick suggestions for Dan Snyder if he wants to. I mean, he could take like white out and just cross out red and just call them the Washington Skins. So I mean, not a lot of thing. Or you could just kind of take the kin out of it and just have it the Reds, the Washington Reds. So you kind of put a white out over that. I mean, you still have to take away the Indian profile on there, but that might save them a couple dollars. I mean, you don't have to rip everything up, just a little white out or a little crayon and just kind of cross that out, and it might save them a couple
a lot of money. Terrible, but it says they're going to stink anyway, which goes along with our football show Sunday. We had them ranked second. So that's right. From that standpoint, but whatever, they're done with it. People are mentioning, like Amir said, what about the Indians? Braves have come out already and said, we're not changing the name if you don't want to do that. And they should. They shouldn't. It's all this PC crap, people crying all over the place over a name. Relax. First of all, don't be fooled. Daniel Snyder never wanted to change the name, because the Native Americans or whoever, or the people posing as Native Americans or whoever it was that started this, they wanted the name changed 10 years ago.
Sure.
Okay. And let me just repeat what I've said on a previous show again. For all you people thinking, FedEx is good for standing up for the cause, and Amazon is good for standing up for the cause, and Walmart's good standing up for the cause, let me tell you something. If you truly believe that FedEx, Amazon, Walmart, and Target give a crap about anything going on right now in life, whether it's BLM, whether it's Native Americans, you're dumber than you look, and you should get off of social media. Because the only reason they are fighting the Redskins on this is because they'll lose money if they don't. Because 10 years ago, when the Native Americans wanted the Redskins to change their name, did you see FedEx jump ship? Did you see Amazon jump ship? Did you see Walmart or Target? They didn't care. They only care now because they're afraid they'll lose money. And
it's all about the money.
If you think it's because those four companies care about your cause, I don't know what to tell you. I worry about your sanity, because they don't give a crap about you. They care about their wallet. That's all.
And you know, Jim, and as I said, Linda, my wife, is one of the writers on your website, and she makes a lot of comments on Facebook. She said to Matt Ice mentioned something about a new name for the team. He called them something Reds or something, and my wife replied, "Hey, listen, anything with a color in it should not be allowed, because why that color? Why red? I mean, don't you think the Color Association would be upset about that? The National Color Association would be mad that you chose red out of every other crayon in the box. I mean, why you're discriminating against yellow? You're discriminating. I mean, listen, let me tell you what Snyder should do. So out of hand,
I'm going to move to Cuba.
You know what Snyder should do, and this is what I would do if I was in this place. I would get every Redskin fan and ask them their opinion. Do you want to keep the Redskin name? Because this truly, to me, it really bothers me. It rubs me the wrong way.
These people complaining don't even watch the Redskins. They
exactly.
Seattle.
The Redskins are a well-known organization. They've won 3 Super Bowls. They've gone to another one and lost. Two really, because they lost already, and the Dolphins. I mean, this is a historic franchise. You can look at it as maybe racist, or you could look at it as, hey, they're showing homage to the Redskins because they're fighters and because they're warriors. And you could take it either way. But I guarantee you, at least 80% of those people complaining have never was a fan of the Redskins. Never.
Half of them probably don't even watch football.
Yeah.
Why? You just say, why not just call them the Washington Warriors and be done with it?
It's a shame. I mean, it's it really is a shame because this is a great franchise. And again, I said this before. Are they going to change the Giants' name because normal people are upset that they're
short people are upset?
Yeah, I mean, are they upset because they're praising the Giants?
Yeah. Here's the funny part: is everyone wants to play Daniel Snyder. Wake up, America! Daniel Snyder did not name the Redskins. They were named the Redskins. Exactly. What damn team? I'm waiting for this country has become so PC, it's disgusting. I'm waiting for when what are you going to do on Sundays when the fans show up who can't afford to pay $150 for a new jersey, so they wear their Sean Taylor Redskins jersey? You going to kick them out?
Yeah.
Oh, you can't wear the Redskins on it. What about Sean Taylor, dude? What if you want to honor Sean Taylor, one of the great safeties who passed away? Can't wear his Redskins jersey?
And that probably be true. I mean, that might be true.
About here, what kind of thing? You are worried about here? You charge if people throw paint on the ground, you charge them with hate crime. I mean, this country's out of control. I mean,
ridiculous. I mean, look at them. Supposedly, America's team, the Cowboys. I mean, the animal activist groups are going to be up in arms because they lead these cattle to slaughter and they kill these.
Didn't the Cowboys in history used to kill the Indians?
Yes. So I mean,
how are they allowed to keep the name?
Exactly. So that's why Jerry Jones has been silent about a lot of things right now.
Because he said no one can ever kneel for Dallas, and he doesn't know what to say now.
This is some more pressure, though, Jim. I'm telling you, I bet he's sweating right now. He's not sure what to do. So, but anyway, I kind of rubs me the wrong way. I mean, I can imagine what this memorabilia is going to be worth in about 20, 30 years. If you guys can buy a Redskins shirt or a helmet, buy it now. Because
now it's going to be worth a lot in 40 years. Go out and find one.
Oh, my God, yeah. And when owners start letting big companies tell you what to name your team, I mean, this is a bigger point. I mean, if Citi Field comes in, whoever their major sponsors are, and says, hey, guess what? You're going to do this, or we're not going to sponsor you. And if you're going to let them threaten you to do that, the world of sports is in trouble.
Well, see, that's the good thing about Steve Cohen. If he buys the team, he won't have to listen to them. Because he'd be like, listen, buddy, I could build the damn stadium myself.
Right.
I don't need you. I'm rich. So,
but you know what I'm saying, Jim.
I mean, and the worst part, again, I said, not to beat a dead horse, but the worst part about it is not the fact that to change the name, whatever, if it's going to make everyone happy, who probably doesn't even care about football because people are just looking for something to cry about right now. If he wants to change the name, I don't care. But like I said, all these other companies that are trying to say change the name or we're pulling or spawn, they're frauds. Yeah. They're frauds who just want your money. They don't care about any of your causes because they didn't care 10 years ago. So don't act like the Native Americans just brought this up now. They've been asking the Redskins to change their name for a long time. Yeah. Long time. Oh, and David says there's no freedom of speech in this country anymore.
Not anymore.
There have been people let go from their jobs for liking a post on Facebook. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You want people to take a cause seriously, then you can't stop them from speaking their mind because you have to accept the fact that some people just don't like the same cause as other people like. And if you when you try to change that and control that, you basically want to live in a communist country is what you want because you want everyone to think one way. That's never works. It's not. But anyway, so now that the Redskins are changing their name too, I'm rooting for the Warriors. I heard someone say the Washington Reds. I heard someone say the Red Tails too. I like the Red Tails actually.
You know what I'm hoping they change their name to, and I'm hoping they change it to
This is sarcastic.
No, well, a little bit of both because I would love them to do this.
I was being serious, but okay.
It's kind of both ways. I would love to see them change their name to formerly the Washington Redskins. I mean, how can you disagree with that, right? Just formally.
The Redskins not be anywhere near the name.
All right.
Do you like the Tails?
No, I like the Redskins.
The Washington Warriors. Redskins are out, so just let
you asked me what I like. I like the Washington Redskins.
The name of a new one.
All right, the Washington Blackfeet.
No.
Okay.
Thing too. No.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's right. A real name for Washington.
What they've been considering. You don't like any of the ones they've been considering?
I don't know. I mean, why don't you just call them the Washington politicians, because they're giving into political views anyway. So it is Washington politicians.
That can work. Yeah, that's a good one.
Right.
So a couple other news and notes from the NFL today. Well, we'll find out probably in a week or two, because I think he has to move pretty fast just because of the fact that if you're going to get all the merchandise and stuff ready for the season, I mean, let's be honest, we're right around the corner from August.
Oh, that's a big undertaking. Right?
Yeah, it's almost August 1st.
Yeah.
So some other stuff on the news. So Devontae Freeman's agent, not him, his agent got rid of him. Now, let me tell you, when your agent gets rid of you, that's a problem. Okay. Usually it's the other way around. The player doesn't want to.
Right.
So, supposedly his agent, Kristen Campbell, got him his deal years ago when she got him a 5-year, $41 million extension. Okay. Which at the time made him, the highest paid running back in the game. Now, nobody's signed him yet. She was able to get teams to offer him around $4 or $5 million a year because he's almost in like a prove me thing. He still thinks he should be getting paid top dollar. The agent thinks he's cracked, and she dropped him.
Right.
So, what do you think about that?
Hey, I think the agent's smart. I mean, listen, we've seen it. I don't know how many times now with different players that come out and think they're better than what they are and think they're the star of the show and you got to be confident playing in any major sports. You got to think you're the best. But this is another thing social media has brought to us. You can show personal films of yourself. You can directly go out and talk to the fans. You can directly go out and aggravate people. You can directly go and affect the organizations that might be signing you when you go and say what you think you're worth, and that's not right. An agent has a tough job today, Jim. It ain't like it used to be where it's directly the agent with the team and you now. I mean, the players have now become their own agents in a lot of ways, at least try to be their own agents, trying to sell themselves in a lot of different ways on social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, personal messages, whatever. They're all out there, and they're all shining the lights on themselves when it used to be the agent's job to do this. So a lot has changed with social media, not just what we see and discuss, but business has changed 100%, and sometimes for the worse.
I wish just for like 3 years of my life, like even if like a guardian angel came down to me and said, listen, Jim, I'll give you an option. You could ride this life out and see how it turns out. Or I'll give you 3 years, but then you have to die. But I'll give you $10 million a year for 3 years to live off of. So I could just see what it feels like. Because I just want to know what it feels like to make enough money in your lifetime that you could tell a team, you know what? I don't want 1 year, $5 million. I'll sit this one out.
Right.
I want to know what that feels like to have enough money to just tell someone, I'll sit this one out. Because Freeman is going to wind up not having a job because he thinks he's worth more than 1 year, $4 million, $5 million. It's a prove it year, my friend. Go out there and prove what you can do. I mean, you're not the same back anymore, my friend. You're not even considered one of the top 8 backs in the league. So that's why you don't have a job. You saw Cam Newton took less money. He's going to prove it. And if he goes out and he puts up a monster year, believe me, he will get paid.
No doubt. No doubt. But you notice Cam was not out in social media. He was not out there bragging, not out there showing, not out there talking. He let his agent do all the talking. When the agent came back and said, to try and find a team for him. And when the agent said, hey, the Patriots contacted us, this is what everybody's like, what's going on with how come nobody's offering Cam Newton anything? Well, we didn't know because the agent was quiet. Cam was quiet. And now he got what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a starting quarterback, have a shot at showing teams what he could do. And that was letting the agent do his job.
Yep. In other news, Terrell Pryor. Remember him? He was a big-time quarterback at a big-time school, just like Dwayne Haskins, and he couldn't play quarterback in the NFL because he stinks. Anyway, former favorite player, I'm sure, of Justin when he was with the Jets. 14 passes, 235 yards, 2 TDs before being cut. Monster numbers. He wants back in the league. He's had a couple conversations with the Patriots. Perfect team for him.
There you go.
He'll take a chance on anybody. It doesn't matter. They'll take a chance on anybody. It's true. You want Terrell Pryor on the Giants for his
I know.
He was a
You know,
Jet. He knows.
Do they still have the XFL this year? Is that coming up this year? Is there any word?
That he said that he's going to hit too much lost money. They already canceled it. Forget.
That's all done. Huh? Well,
they were making it. They were making it. This is the only thing that stopped them was the virus. But he had one really, really good year when in Cleveland, when he had over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 77 catches. That was it.
Yeah,
that was it. He had some time where he missed after he got stabbed. He got charged with simple assault, so some other things, but he wants to come back. The Patriots will take a chance on anybody once. They always, at one time, they'll give you one chance. Didn't they even take a chance on Tebow at one point?
Yeah, they had him out there. They didn't utilize him right, but they had him. They had him for that one.
I'll tell you, they'll take a chance on everybody. If LeBron James came out tomorrow and said, I want to try this tight end thing out, the Patriots would bring him to camp.
Any team would bring him to camp to try him out just for the press.
I'm saying, yeah.
I mean, hey, listen, Tim Tebow went there and he was used as like one of them specialized quarterbacks that ran, the Wildcat formation or something. He was really never given a real shot, but that's another conversation for them.
Yeah. All right. So in other NFL news, as we roll on, the Titans are trying really hard to lock up Derrick Henry long term.
Yeah,
he's one. I want to talk about a good running back, Deontay Freeman. There you go, Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Good running.
I mean, listen, you got to credit the Titans' offensive line for that. I would sign all them offensive linemen. Their zone blocking, opening them huge holes for Henry was unbelievable. And once you get that big back on the safety or quarterback, dance is over.
He led the league last year in rushing with 1,540 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. The Titans were a half away from going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think he ran for like 400 yards in 2 games or 3 games of the playoffs. I mean, what a running game they had. That was unbelievable with the show they put on with their
People remember that Tennessee dominated KC in the first half of that play.
Yeah.
Kept it together, they would with a quarterback who's not really that great. So they were talking to NFL Network today. They were throwing some numbers around. They think Henry is probably going to get close to what Zeke got, 6 years, $90 million.
Yeah.
Right? That's about where they can have. He's already signed his franchise tender, which is going to cost the team $10.28 million in 2021 and less than $13 million if they use the tag again in 2021. So I said 2020 he's getting 10.28. 2021 it would be under $13 million. They own his rights for 2 years guaranteed, worth about $23 million and a little over $10 million guaranteed. At the time, he's only 26.
Yeah.
After the 2 years, he would be 28. I know they want to lock him up. I would give him. Considering the Titans' whole team is built around defense and running. Now I know they gave huge money to the quarterback. But they gave huge money to the quarterback, not because he's Mahomes, not because he's Prescott, not because he's not even really Daniel Jones. He's not going to throw, so I'm not trying to put Daniel Jones and Dak in the other guy in Mahomes' league. Daniel Jones is young, but Daniel Jones still had plenty of games where he threw for 300, 350, 400, 4 touchdowns. He had 2 games last year. He threw 4 touchdowns. The Titans quarterback is not that guy. He's a manage the game, don't turn it over, play strong defense, hand the ball off first, and he just got a long-term deal. So if you're going to give a long-term deal to a guy who's not going to throw 350 yards a game, he needs that running game. Because if you're a short thrower, you need Tannehill's good at the small ball. He needs that running game. You got to lock up Henry. You got to give him like a 4 or 5 year deal at $30 million apiece. Because if you lose one of the best running backs in the game in 2 years, during the last 4 years of Tannehill's deal, if he doesn't have a good running back, now you're forcing him to do something he doesn't do well, which Miami tried to do. He's not the air it out kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, Tannehill is very, very good. He led the league, and I think it was on play action passes. Of course, they had to respect Henry.
Respecting Henry. Yeah.
Definitely. So, but, I mean, listen, I think that's overpaying Henry. I think Henry reminds me a lot of Earl Campbell. Earl Campbell was a little bit bigger. He takes a lot of shots. And I don't know if he's going to last that full year unless the offensive lineman continues to block like that.
5 years is too much for a guy who's only.
I think it's too many years. I would have offered him a shorter contract. I'm not saying the money is wrong necessarily, but I think the contract is a little too long. And I think that you could put a lot of good running backs behind an offensive line, and they would be very successful. Maybe not as good as Derrick Henry, but they would get close. I really think that's a Dallas format where I think Zeke might even be. I'm not going to say he's better than Henry. A little different. I think Henry is. I say he reminds me of Campbell a lot. Campbell was just a little bit bigger, and he's going to take a lot of shots. But man, what a back he is! I wouldn't give him all them years. Maybe not. Maybe the money, but not 5 years. I don't think he'll be that strong another 4 or 5 years.
Well, the thing is that for me, I would give it to him. I mean, that's just me. I mean, I'm looking at a guy who's 26. So the way I see it, when you take these guys who are 26 years old and they're bruisers, as you say, they're taking a lot of hits. They're not really concerned about their body. Running backs don't last a long time to begin with. And that's when you're a scat back. When you're a back that's going up the middle, pounding the ball all the time, you're probably good till 30, 31, and then you're done. So the way I see it is they have two options. They give him the 4 or 5 year deal now, which will take him to 30, 31, make him happy so you don't have an upset player. You don't want your best player upset. Or they're going to let him play 2 more years for a total of $23 million. Then he'll be 28. If he has good years, they'll wind up giving him 4 or 5 years then anyway. And now you're paying him till he's 32 or 33. And what if he's not as good anymore?
That's a good point.
Give it to him now especially because they even touched base on this on the article I was reading about it, is that, remember, Washington kept avoiding paying Kirk Cousins and tagging him, and then he didn't want to be there, and he got run out of town. Pittsburgh did the same with Bell. Bell had enough. Don't forget, when Bell left, said, I'm not playing anymore for Pittsburgh, he was one of the top backs in the league. He didn't leave on the downside. So why create the animosity? Why just, they want, but the whole thing is Tennessee wants to pay him. They're trying to lock him up. So they're not trying to hold off on him because you're going to give him 4 or 5 years anyway. So why not do it now? Because you said it yourself. If they do it in 2 years, now you're paying him till he's 33. Who knows?
I mean, listen. I mean, the contract's negotiable in 2 years from now. Whatever. I mean, listen. Le'Veon Bell just showed that an offensive line has a lot to do with how good you are. I mean, great hands, great back. Waited for the blocks to open in Pittsburgh. There was no blocks opening in the Jets. So, I mean, a lot depends, Jim, on your offensive line. That's what they're built to do. Derrick Henry is perfect. How about this for a comparison? I'll compare Derrick Henry to John Riggins. Fast, strong, was pretty durable. He was good for, I don't know, I think he played into his early 30s. So, if the Tennessee Titans want to pay him that money for that long, man, God bless him. But I still think that if you had a real a strong back behind him, he'd be just almost as successful as Henry.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I think they're going to lock him up. I'd be surprised if he went through this whole season, without getting paid. I would be really surprised. So, one other football note I want to get to before we switch to another course of action here. This is one of the things that upsets me of being a Giants fan. Now they're saying that Clowney is getting close to possibly signing with Philly. And what bothers me about this is, first of all, the Giants never seem to I know, I get it. Clowney is sometimes really good, sometimes not so good. He takes games off where it looks like he's not even there anymore. Why is it the Giants can't sign a need? Like, why is it that constantly everybody in the NFC East gets better and we don't? Like, say what you want. Clowney's better than, who they got. So why is it that every other team, why is it that every other team in the NFC East will do anything in their power, except for, of course, the Redskins, because Daniel Snyder can't get out of his own way, to get better? The Cowboys would even talk to the Jets about Adams, whether they got the deal or not. The Eagles will sign, and the Giants just sit in the mud, man. I don't Clowney. I don't understand. I know you don't love Clowney, but still, I don't love him running around after us all year either. So
you know something? I mean, Clowney was a big letdown from what he was supposed to be. I mean, kind of out of college, he was supposed to be the next Alan Page. I mean, he's a good player. He gets hurt a lot. And it's got to be worth, Jim. You can't just go spend money on players that are having average years. And Clowney's just having average years. So you're going to pay this guy top dollar who you would pay somebody like a J.J. Watt or a defensive lineman of that caliber. You're going to give that money to Clowney when he had J.J. Watt and maybe made him even look better. I'm not worried about Clowney being on the Eagles. I'm not worried about Clowney at all. He's a good athlete. He's a good ball player, but he's not worth no $18 million, $15 million a year. It's not his worth. So I think the Giants are smart to stay away from Clowney. I think it was good not to spend all that money in the cap where you can get somebody else to help out during the year that might put you over the top at a certain position. I don't think Clowney's that player that's going to put the Giants over the top. I don't think he's that player that's going to put the Eagles over the top either.
Well, maybe so, but it's just like it seems like every other team is out there that we got to go up against, and they're trying to get better, and the Giants aren't. Like, for example, now you got the Baker thing. Baker might not be a Giant anymore. I understand we have a lot of young corners, but why are we not out there talking to the corners that haven't signed? Isn't Logan Ryan still out there? Like, why
they might be
Giants not? Are the Giants just we're okay going 6-10 this year? We're fine.
They might be talking to them. We don't know. Giants are pretty quiet about their moves. I don't know. They could be out there talking to Logan. They could be out there talking to anybody, any cornerback right now. I would imagine that they probably are. I would think that, unless they really believe that one of those second-year cornerbacks we have can really fill it in. I don't know. Listen. I like the Giants plan going forward right now. I like all the young players. I like the vets that they got there right now, the ones they picked up in free agency. So, I mean, I'm glad, honest to God, I'm glad they didn't go out to Clowney.
Yeah, so I don't know. So it just aggravates me. I'd like to see that the Giants are in on somebody that's out there, especially if they have a need. Like, they've got to know what they're going to do with Baker already. Listen. Yeah.
To continue that on, we got Golden, who's better, sacked more people than Clowney did last year, maybe a different position, but he had more sacks last year. We just signed a good, solid middle linebacker, a good, solid offensive linebacker, a shutdown corner, a decent backup, two decent backup quarterbacks. We just picked up we have one decent running back that we just signed. They're addressing people, Jim, but they're trying to stay youth, and I agree with that going forward.
Well, we'll see what happens, because it's going to be one of those seasons where, hopefully, if they ride the youth, hopefully it works out.
Yeah. Hey, one quick thing about the Giants that I read this year. Do you know how they predict where you finish as far as your offense, your defense, your quarterback, where they think the Giants are going to sit this year on their offensive line? Now, we just drafted all these offensive linemen, and we think we're ready to go. Well, they rated them at 20. This year, before going in. Last year, they were, believe it or not, they were 17th in the NFL in run pass combined. 17th, Jim. If we haven't gotten past 17th this year, I mean, I don't see how we were even 17th.
So you want to know where I think the Giants' offensive line ranks?
Yeah, this is what the PPF.
I would say 20th is pretty accurate. I mean, you're talking about 20th out of what, 32 teams? Yeah, I mean, I would expect that sounds about right to me. I mean, look at the line. I mean, Willie Hernandez was terrible last year. Yeah. So, they're not going to rank him great until he shows it. Solder was so bad that when he's on the internet telling people, well, if it's not safe, we won't play, everyone's like me telling him, well, don't play. You can't play.
Yeah, right.
He gave up 11 sacks. So he's not that good. Not a single person on the Giants line had a great year last year. And all the rookies coming in need time to gel. You can't expect. I mean, Lemieux might not even start this year at all.
Right.
Not play. They might work Pert for a year. Matt Pert, he might not start this year.
Right.
So, and you expect Andrew Thomas to come in and just be like lights out on everybody. So no, 20 is actually, to be honest with you, a little generous.
Listen, I believe Justin Thomas is a huge upgrade at left tackle. I think Zeller's done a great job for us at right tackle, if you haven't noticed. I mean, he's done a good job at right tackle for us. And with the acquisition of some of the free agents that we picked up on offense, I think we're going to have a better offensive line than last year. And we finished 17. So, I mean, I don't know. I think we're going to be surprising a lot of people, especially Colombo being our offensive line coach. I really believe
better, because if they don't surprise a lot of people, it's going to be a long season. Because if there's no room for Barkley to run and there's no time for Jones to throw, and the Eagles have Clowney, and the Redskins picked up Chase Young, you're getting hit a lot.
Yeah, I agree. But I just think
I didn't mind the Giants going after Clowney when I thought he'd go somewhere else, like Seattle or Cleveland. I don't want him in Philly.
I have no problem with him being in Philly. I really don't. Philadelphia gives us fits anyway. I mean, Philadelphia's defense gives us fits anyway. I don't think Clowney's a big addition.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, hopefully he doesn't even sign with Philly. I mean, who knows? I mean, Philly thinks they're signing everybody, so I have no idea what's going to happen. But, if they have the money, they have the money. But, I mean, for me, it's like whether he has, for me, they could sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal and cut him after 2. So, I mean, it's not a bad deal if he comes in and leads them to a Super Bowl. So, Clowney has talent, but – we'll see what it is. So on another note, let's turn the page as we get down the home stretch here to hockey. So as I was trying to tell you before, right before he called in, is I kind of trolled Justin a little bit today. And I saw he made a comment. He's like, I didn't like that. So what I did is I was putting together my art for the show, where I put my pictures and advertise the show and I put it up. And since, I put something that relates to every topic, as we're going to talk about. Right. So for hockey, I put a picture of the Flyers. Not a Ranger, not an Islander, just to keep him on his toes with the date August 2nd, because that's the date that the Flyers take it. So, we have a lot of Ranger fans who they like to talk a lot of smack, but I'm just going to say this to my Ranger fans because they know I love them. But let's be legit. The Flyers were actually a playoff team. You guys needed a bonus round to get in, or you'd be sitting home. So the facts are the facts. The Flyers were the 4 seed, a chance to be the 1 seed. They were close. And the Rangers needed a hand-me-out to go to the playoffs.
Right.
So I'm just saying. So when you want to get on me about the Flyers, which is, just remember, we deserve to be there. You're getting a break. It just is what it is. So,
hey, listen. But I love it's the beginning of the new season. Everybody's got a shot now, Jim. So, I mean, listen.
You got to sell them on, Mac. I know you want to be diplomatic. You sell them on whatever. Flyers might not win it, but I'm just simply saying is that, at the end of the day, we earned our spot. We were the hottest team in the league.
This thing has changed everything. I mean, there's basketball teams going to playoffs that weren't in the playoffs. So, I mean, it's a whole new thing. It's a new season now, and we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe your Flyers do something.
Maybe the Rangers. They don't. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe the Rangers
would love nothing more than to see a Flyers-Rangers showdown in the playoffs because it'll make
nice.
Great big guy sports network.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the Rangers slide in. Maybe the Islanders get there. You never know, man. Anything's possible.
Listen, we'll see. Like I said, we got big things coming up, which I'll get into after we go through the hockey because I got 3 hockey insiders now on the staff, and all three of them are joining us the last week in July to talk hockey, Rangers, and Islanders right before the playoffs.
That'll be great.
Scour up a Flyer insider just to piss off the Ranger fans. I'm going to do it. So,
that'd be great.
Anyway, so we got a lot of stuff. But anyway, so hockey released the round robin schedule. So, everything's starting August 1st. As you know, the teams that are playing, it's kind of like 2 sets of games. You have the set of people that are playing, like the Flyers and the Capitals and teams like that. They're just playing for seeding. They're just playing, like the Flyers will play like Washington, Tampa, and Boston. Those 4 teams will just all play each other once, sort of like almost like soccer style, and that'll just who's the 1 through 4 seed for when the teams advance, and then they'll just sit and wait while all the other teams are playing their best of 5 series to see who advances to get it down to the 8. Right. So like basically the Flyers, Capitals, Bruins, those guys in their first round games, they can't get eliminated. They're just playing for seeding.
Right.
The teams are playing to get eliminated. So, you have the starting on Saturday, August 1st. The times haven't been announced, but from what I understand, if you're a hockey lover like me, there should be games on all those games. None of them should go against each other. So what I'm saying is you have on the August 1st, right? You have the Rangers playing the Hurricanes, the Panthers playing the Islanders, the Canadians playing the Pittsburgh. Those should all start one after each other. So if you're a hockey fan, you're getting 9 hours, 10 hours of straight hockey coverage.
Right. And there's only one game on a second that I saw scheduled. That's the Maple Leafs and the Blue Jackets, right? So all those other hockey games are going off.
The Flyers are playing the Bruins that day in the round robin game for seeding.
Okay, so but the other games, what I'm saying, August 1st, all those games are going off from what I saw. But the Maple Leafs and the Blue Jackets were scheduled for the second, from what I was reading. Right.
But there's also 2 Western Conference games, 2 on the 1st, the Blackhawks. Right. And from my understanding is, hopefully they do this because people, if you're in a bubble, not everyone can't play at 7:00.
Right.
Hopefully, but the West Coast games could be on the same time as the East Coast, but I'm hoping they don't do that. Like if you start. I hope you start the first, I guess some are going to have to overlap because even if you started, like, let's say the Rangers Hurricanes game started at the earliest time possible, noon, right? But then you can't start the Panthers Islanders till 3, and you can't start the Canadians Penguins till 6. You can't start the Western Conference first game at 9 I guess you could do 9 and then midnight because on the East Coast they'll be playing till 3 a.m. But on the West Coast they're only really playing from 9 to midnight.
Right.
I guess you could do it. It'd be pretty cool if opening day you had 5 straight games. Could you imagine?
One after another.
I wouldn't even sleep because I'd be watching hockey.
Yeah, I mean that would be very exciting. You kidding me?
So that would be killer. But the schedule is set. And according to this, based on the way everything's going to go, let me see what's going on here. Let me scroll down a little bit. So according to this, the qualifying bubble round, as I'll call it, will be start on the 1st and finish August 9th at the latest. So after August 9th, then you'll be down to 8-8. You'll be down to 8-8, and then you'll get what you're going to get. So then you'll have the qualifying rounds and see what's going on. So, you get 9 days to whittle the field down to 8 teams each and to get the round robin teams situated, in seeding.
Okay.
So,
all right.
It's pretty exciting stuff just to be around the corner. Like, I'm way more confident that hockey is going to play than baseball.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Hockey guys are like ready to go.
Hockey guys don't care.
Guys are whining every 5 minutes.
Hockey don't care. You can punch.
Opt out.
Listen. Hockey guys are playing when baseball goes to the bench and they're sitting there because they hurt their thumb and they're playing with bloody noses and broken teeth. So we know the toughness of the hockey players. I'm not worried about them at all.
All right. Well, yeah, they're gonna play. It would take a lot.
Definitely. There ain't no doubt. No doubt.
Those guys are about the sport. They're not crying about I got to sit out or I broke a toenail. I can't play baseball here. The hockey.
I don't
ready to go.
They might not even test. They try to test them and they might throw the test right back in their face. Go test yourself, man. We don't need it.
There's one sport that you haven't heard a single player cry. It's hockey. Basketball.
Exactly.
In baseball's crying. Hockey's like just drop the puck and let's go. Justin's talking a lot of smack in the trade channel about the Flyers, but I can't even take him like Justin as much as I love him. I can't take him serious this year because the Flyers dominated the Rangers this year. It's almost like the equivalent of what they did to the Hurricanes. Dominated. Right. So
now, what's your record? What was your record between the Flyers?
4-1 against you, or 3.
So the
stretch when the Rangers. Right before they shut down, when the Rangers were close to that playoff spot, the Rangers had in the last couple of weeks before the shutdown, had momentum. They were getting close to that last spot. Right. Because at this time they thought that spot's what they needed. You don't know what's going to happen. They they're going to shut down. They had a big home and home with the Flyers, and the Flyers dominated both games.
Both games,
5 goals a game, back to back, right down the stretch. Yes,
it's a new season, Jim. It's a new
Alex himself, Alex, who is a Ranger diehard fan, said he'd rather not play the Flyers in the playoffs. He'd rather play someone else because the Flyers match up well. As hockey, it's like how you match up against them. The Flyers have the right system to match up well against the Rangers. The Rangers match up better against somebody like the Carolina. It's the way you fit. The way
sure, definitely.
Flyers don't match up well a lot of times against like Boston. So they have a lot of trouble with Boston.
There's some teams that are more speed and some teams that are more physical, right?
Yeah. So, there's everybody you want to avoid. For me, I always go with any team I like. I go into the playoffs and I want to play whatever team we usually don't have trouble with because I just want to get, I don't care how we get there, So, so hockey's ready to go. But I have two stories we're going to talk about. We're going to talk to our insiders next week about this too when we do our Islander and Ranger reports, because that's one of the things we're really excited to announce that's starting next week. When we have guests, we're going to have like Ranger reports, Islander reports, guys who are dedicated to come on and give reports and answer questions.
So Alex is going to be on again. Is that what you're telling me? We're going to have Alex on?
Down quite a bit during the
all right, cool.
And then off during the off season, and then he'll come back.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, that's real cool.
But that's the level. We are going to be bringing you insider information, shows, this and that. We're going to bring you a lot of stuff without making money yet. So we're like the poor man's WFAN. Not even poor. We're like the on support.
Yeah, we're like the poor stepchild. Yeah, we're the poor stepchild.
Yeah, but an advertiser will find us sooner or later and love us.
Hey, listen,
we're taking shots at my goalie. Carter Hart's better than any goalie the Rangers have. I don't even know what he's talking about.
I know Igor's
retired.
Igor's got potential. Igor's got potential.
Proven. Carter Hart's better than both of those guys. So let's talk about for a minute if we can. So couple big things, and we'll talk more to the insiders next week about this, that they're both New York teams, Islanders and Rangers, both don't know who they're going to start in the playoffs in net. Like, this is not something you usually deal with. Usually, you know who your goalie is, of course, goalies can change in a series based on if it's not playing well. But usually you kind of know right off the bat who they're going to start. The Islanders, they don't know if they're going to start Varlamov or Greiss. I call him Greiss. Hopefully I said his name right. It's probably Greiss. But, the Islanders have a goalie decision to make. So it's going to be interesting to see, he said the Islanders coach said he's going to decide in camp, who's going to be the goalie. I'm not really sure what camp can show you. I mean, you're not playing against competition. So you're just going to say, I'm side off of who, of who's shooting what, who's doing what in the net. I don't know. But they put some money into Varlamov. They gave him a 4-year, $20 million contract in 2009. He's very good against the Panthers. Very good. He was, he was 8-3-1 with a 2.65 goals against average and a 9.22 save percentage against the Panthers, who they're going to play.
Right.
And Greiss was 5-2 in 8 games against Florida with a 1.79 goals against. So both of them have had a lot of success against the Panthers, their first round opponent. For the season, though, they're almost identical.
Yeah.
Varlamov was 19-14 with 19-14-6 with a 2.62 goals against and a 9.14 save percentage in 39 games, and Greiss was 16-9-4 with a 2.74 goals against with a 9.13 save percent. And he's, they played almost close to nothing games. They have almost identical records, almost identical save percentage, and almost identical goals against. Only Greiss is a free agent this year. He's going to get, if the Islanders are not going to commit to him to start, he's going to get a starting job somewhere else. So who do you go with? It's a toss-up.
It's good. It's a good problem to have, though, right? I mean, if they're that comparable, where where one has a bad game you've got to decide quick too, Jim. I mean, you've got to have a little depth of the goalie, just like the Rangers. They do have depth there, whether Igor goes or the vet goes. So, I mean, at least they do have that depth there at goalie. And in these short games, if something happens and you're paying 3 out of 5 instead of 4 out of 7, you've got to make decisions right away, especially in these first games. So it's going to be a big decision. You go with who you think is hot. And if they have a bad first period or a bad half or bad 2 periods, you bring the other guy in. I mean, you ain't got time to take a lot of time to make decisions at this time.
Well, that's the one. On the good point there. The one good thing they have about both of them is since they're both pretty equal, if one gets cold, there's no hesitation to make the switch right away.
And that's a big thing.
Yeah. So, and the Rangers have their own controversy brewing with who's going to start in goal too. Because what are they going to do? This is probably Lundqvist's last season with the Rangers. I mean, he's on contract, I believe, still, but they're probably going to let him go. The Rangers haven't committed to who it's going to be either. I mean, now Lundqvist was the number 3 almost down the stretch, but if you look at, you've got, Igor, he's the guy who you look at for the future. He really, if he's strong in camp, he should really start, because, I'm looking at the stats here. Lundqvist, wasn't this good on the year, but he's always had a good history against the Canes. So
right.
Look at Lundqvist. He's always been strong against the Canes, and Igor doesn't have the playoff experience.
Right.
So it's one of those things where it's one of these situations where, and again, yes, you could change goalie in the series, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about who's going to start. And, you could go with the vet who hasn't played well, was basically their number 3.
Right.
You could go, but has always played well in his career against Carolina. Or you could go with your number 1, who maybe doesn't have the history, but was well ahead of him this season as the overall goalie.
So you got to go with your best, right? I mean, you got to give Igor the shot. I mean, if he's the one that's been playing all year, if Lundqvist has fallen off to almost 3, you've got to go with what you think is your best for this year. He's young. Lundqvist is a little bit older. I would definitely have Igor playing goal for him.
Yeah, I think you go with the young guy too. I mean, I think that you got this opportunity. Like we said before, they were going to miss the playoffs if they only get to 8. You got this second chance to go into the playoffs. You got to go all in. I mean, your best chance to win is Igor. Now is not the time to show loyalty to a guy that you're not going to even have next year. There's no way they're bringing him back next year. He was
right. And you might
not. He's not coming back.
And you might hurt Igor's feelings, if not for a better phrase. I mean, if you're showing you don't have confidence in the kid, this is his first big show. Let him have at it.
Yeah, this is Igor is this is his team going forward, and he's your guy. Just let him learn now. This is an opportunity. Let him get the experience. If anything, if you lose, at least he gets, if you don't win in the first round or the play-in round, if you want to call it that, at least you're getting him the experience.
Yeah.
Experience in the net. What, let's say you put Lundqvist in and you do lose. You go out in the first round, but he plays decent. And then you're going to let him go money for money reasons anyway next year, because Lundqvist still believes somewhere he can start, which whether it's true or not, we know how players like to hold on to, the past. What did you get out of it? You lost in the first round anyway, but you got Igor no experience.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think having Lundqvist in there instead of Igor is going to make you a Stanley Cup favorite, right? I mean, you don't really believe that in the back of your mind. So
no, I mean, Justin's right. Of course, I would be more scared of Igor, and it's not a knock on Lundqvist, because there have been plenty of years where the Flyers played Lundqvist in his prime and couldn't get a goal in. But when the Flyers played Lundqvist the last 2 years, they lit him up. So you're at that's the smartest comment Justin could ever make. I would much rather face Lundqvist, because the Flyers will light him up, because he isn't what he used to be. Of course, you're more scared of Igor. But for the Rangers, this is just being honest. This is not to upset the Ranger fans, because for us as a show, I'm a Flyers fan, but we're a New York sports show.
Right.
So we're not going to come on here and dominate talk about the Flyers for an hour. We're not. We'll talk about them for 10 minutes so I can rub it in, and then we'll move on. But the Rangers are a long shot to win it all. And I'm not saying that to get Alex down or to get David down or to get Justin. They're a long shot. If you think they're the favorite, you're mistaken. You're just being a fan. But Igor needs to learn. I would just throw him in there and let's see what, because it's for the Rangers, you got to think you're a long shot to win the cup. This is nothing.
Well, what that would be like. That'd be like, Jim. It'd be like, I'll give a baseball example. You got a great young pitcher and you make it to the playoffs in a wild card game, and he's been doing better than your other regular pitchers. But you have a pitcher who's played playoffs before. I mean, if me being a manager, that kid's going to go in. I mean, he's your future. He had the better year. He deserves to play. Same instance here.
And you're more likely to make a deeper playoff run next year than this year, and he's going to be that much better for it.
Definitely. The confidence
out there and letting him see what he got. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, we got exciting stuff. I mean, this week Tomorrow we have a former Giants wide receiver coming on. Wednesday, we have a former boxing heavyweight champ. We have the following week, like I said, I have our NHL expert insider, Pat Booth, coming on to talk about a lot of the different series. I have Alex, our Ranger insider, coming on one day next week to set us up for not next week. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got the weeks wrong. Next week, I have our Yankee insider, Steve, coming on to talk baseball, as the baseball season is supposed to kick off next Thursday. So he's coming on with us next week on Wednesday to set up the Yankee season. I'm working on we have a Mets guy coming on next week, a beat writer you're working with, to come on and talk about, possibly on the same day. We'll have to get the times coordinated, because I think I have Steve coming on at 4:00 on the 22nd or 5
This is
o'clock.
22nd? Okay.
Yeah, but we'll just talk. I want to have them both on the same day anyway. So we have our Yankee insider coming on next Wednesday, possibly our Met insider coming on next Wednesday to start.
And we still have another ex-former heavyweight champion scheduled for next week too.
I don't know anything. He didn't tell me anything about that, guys. I might have to skip so you can talk boxing, because it's baseball season. So Matt,
definitely
talk boxing. I don't know to blame him. I blame him.
No, I'm just saying we're working out the details.
Let me get in my insiders on sports that are actually about to hit the ice.
There you go.
There we go. We'll never be short on boxing. I can tell you that. I wish I knew more about boxing. I could probably go work for. Is there a boxing network? Like, do they have a channel called the Boxing Net? Probably not, right?
I'm not sure. Now, you're saying this is the 22nd, right? Isn't that 2 weeks from this week?
No, that's next week.
Okay, what's today's date?
The 13th.
Okay.
All right. So we got the two baseball insiders next week on the 22nd, with the baseball season kicking off on the 24th, as long as all these
things happen.
23rd. So it kicks off on the 23rd, as long as all these little Nancys running around don't get their panties in a wad and cancel before the season starts, because they broke a toenail. And then the following week, which is the week that leads up to the start of the hockey season, I've got our NHL insider coming on,
right?
Our Islanders insider coming on, and I got our Ranger insider coming on.
And you know something, Jim? I might have a Flyer beat writer in the works here. So we'll see what happens.
We would want him that week.
All right, we'll see.
We have everybody coming on. We need to come on to lay out the foundation for the start of what's coming.
Yeah.
And that's exciting stuff, because you're going to get Yankee inside information. You're going to get hockey inside information all right before the stuff starts. And we're still working on hopefully some Nets and Knicks inside information before the basketball drops too. So there's going to be a lot of different people coming on. And like he said, he's got a boxing guy this week, former champ. He's got a boxing guy next week. Is that guy a former champ too?
3-time champ, buddy. And a trainer of one of the contenders going up in the heavyweight division.
Oh, there you go. So you got boxing guy this week and next week. He's got a former Giant wide receiver tomorrow.
Well, we should tell him real quick about that. That's Byron Williams.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the Super Bowl contending and Super Bowl team of the 1986. Phil Simms was his quarterback. Played with Baker, Bavaro, McConkey. You know them all. He's going to come on and talk about those days with us.
He's got Max. God, he does the guests. I do the production. He's talking to so many people sometimes I don't even know they're coming on until he tells me. So, but that's okay, because I don't need to know until he knows. So, that's fine. So there's a lot of different people coming on, and we're really, like I said, I'm really starting to get excited about the fact that next week I should be watching baseball.
Sports are coming, buddy.
I'm not watching baseball. I'm just going to do the show like this. The whole show is going to be just the mic, just the picture. I can't.
Hey, they do that on some network TV. It's pretty interesting
because I need it. Like I'm so I'm starting to get finally pumped up. I mean, I think Greg hit it on the head, and that's why I said I feel like we were kindred spirits. Because I've been saying the same thing. If you show that you can get through these 2 months plus a playoffs of the baseball season, there's no reason to think next year they can't play a whole season. Whether it's with fans or not is regardless. But if you can't get through this, it also puts next season into question.
Sure does.
No vaccine. If there's no vaccine before February when spring training's supposed to start, if you can't get through this, they won't. If they cancel baseball before this 3-month experiment gets done, there will be baseball will not start in February.
I wouldn't think so either. I wouldn't think so either.
Until there's a vaccine. Okay. And that means if a vaccine takes another year, you can kiss baseball goodbye next year.
And not
Mac, let me ask you, what are they going to do? You know, we got to go actually because they have another show coming up. So,
okay,
you know, but we'll get into that later tomorrow.
Sure.
So thank you guys for coming in.
Take care, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a great day.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.